Welcome to another conversation with Griff. And today's guest is Ellis Valentine, former Montreal Expo, 10-year player in the major leagues, and one of the great arms that I've ever seen in baseball, and a good friend from back in the day. Ellis, I was a little worried about this interview because there was an AI report that you died in 2015. You obviously were aware of that.
Nobody told me. That's one game I missed that I liked.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I woke up this morning to knowing that I was going to be interviewing you, and so to prepare, I just turned on Bob Marley's Redemption Song, because we're going to talk about that later, the personal redemption of Ellis Valentine. So I know you're not afraid to talk about the warts of your career, but we'll focus on the high points of our career in Montreal and compare notes, because we haven't talked in a while. But I'm really looking forward to this. And also, thanks to all my subscribers and to people who are listening audio or watching on YouTube. And don't be afraid to share with your friends and like and leave comments. This is great. Ellis, in 1972,
yes, sir.
You were selected in the second round. Gary Carter was selected in the third round. And there's a kid named Bobby Goodman selected in the first round by the Expos.
Correct.
What do you remember? I mean, I'm going to get into that a little later about how you and Gary were linked all the way through, because you were selected in the same draft, both supremely talented players.
Yes.
But what do you remember about Bobby Goodman? I know that he was struck by injuries throughout his early career. What do you remember about him?
Oh, God. Goody he was an amazing player. The person was just a good guy. Good old Southern boy, and we had a lot of fun. But he was stricken with just injuries, just one after another. That was the reason Gary Carter was playing outfield, back in the day, because they had to put Gary somewhere, and they were trying to get me to play center field and all this stuff. Center field really wasn't my cup of tea. Right field was a better fit, but Gary and I both come out of Los Angeles as number 2 and 3, and we were, very young and just athletic and competitive. Okay, I mean, Gary was just, he was just tenacious that way. He played the game hard, and I had played the game more lackadaisical than he did, but we were both very talented young kids.
I thought about you during the World Series. I thought about you because, I mean, you were one of the great throwing arms that I've ever seen. And there was a play by Addison, Barger, the Blue Jays right fielder.
Oh, my God.
Threw out a guy at the plate. Throw was measured at 99. And we didn't measure the velocity of outfield arms back then. We very rarely even knew the pitcher's velocity back then.
Correct.
But I was thinking about that, and God bless Addison Barger, but I mean, there were so many arms back in those days that were
memorable,
tremendous, memorable.
Yeah.
And I can think of Jesse Barfield, Dave Parker, obviously, Bo Jackson, Roberto Clemente. Who else can you add to that list that was contemporary?
We know about the Dave Parkers and Winfields and myself and so on for you, but there's guys like Sam Mejias. Okay, it was a guy with the Expo named Sam Mejias. This boy had a gun. I mean, natural gun. He wasn't the greatest hitter or didn't have that much power or whatever playing in his outfield, but he had a gun. We had some real good outfielders back then, and you mentioned this kid here in Toronto and how exceptionally well he throws the ball. Back in the day, it was a requirement to do that. Okay, I mean, when you played, your job as an outfielder was to minimize the amount of bases that runner has in front of you because it's gotten by your infielders, your guys with the gloves and so on and so forth. Now our job is to cut it for the pitcher and to help him out, because obviously he made a mistake or whatever. But it's a different game now, and to see this kid play right field the way he play, oh my God, I'm loving it.
The thing that I remember that doesn't happen anymore is just after both teams took BP, that both teams would take the opportunity to have an in and out, infield, outfield, and throw to bases just before the game, just 20 minutes before the game. Was that where you like to show off? Because the fans would all be in the building, and it was part of the job, and it wasn't just recreational. You were trying to work on things, work on throwing accurately to the base, and that doesn't happen anymore.
Well, it's just like a practice golf swing. You know what I'm saying? You're trying to get that groove down. So what happens with infield and outfield prior to the game, you're actually mind-setting yourself so that when you get to that situation and that guy's going to third or second or home or wherever, you already have that mental note in your head and physical reminder of what you just did. Now, we would do that before every game, okay? And so, really, I need to be accredited for probably another half of my career added on to my career because of the amount of infield practices we took. We played a lot more than these guys. These guys don't do as much as we did back in the day. I go back to when we played. We had guys in our developmental organization like Mel Didier. Okay, he was a different type of director, and he made sure that we dotted the I's and crossed the T's as players. So that's why Montreal became this great developing minor league organization with all this talent. They're just not doing that anymore. They're doing it a different way now. I'm not saying that this is bad. I'm just saying they're doing it a different way now.
I remember Mel Didier finished his career with the Blue Jays, and so I would sit at spring training in the dugout with him, and we would talk about the old days with the Expo. And he would talk about you, and his eyes would just light up, talking about the defensive, the fundamental ability of that team, and we'd be watching a group of 2010 Blue Jays working out on the field, and it's completely different in Mel's eyes. Yes. And he passed a few years ago, but I know exactly what you're talking about there.
I talk to his family all the time now.
Young fans that didn't get a chance to see Ellis Valentine play, or even Dave Parker or those guys, go on YouTube and call up great MLB throws or Ellis Valentine, and it's a treat to watch a 3 or 4 minute video of throws in slow motion from all corners of the outfield. It's terrific. And Ellis, you talked about, you mentioned Sam Mejias, which brought up a memory for me, and I want to hear if you remember it also. There was a lights out blackout at Olympic Stadium.
Yes.
Yeah. In 1977, it must have been. Mm-hmm. And the stadium was brand new, and the stadium, like in many ways, sucked, but in many ways it was our home. So,
we didn't care.
So there was a blackout, and there were just auxiliary lights on. Yeah. So for entertainment, it was a spontaneous throwing contest, and I think it was you and Sam Mejias and Daryl Thomas, and there might have been one other guy.
I'm not sure who else it was.
You talked about Sam Mejias. I think the throws were towards the bleachers, and he went deeper from home plate, deeper into the bleachers than anybody, and that stands out in my mind. What do you remember about that?
I remember it was just a fun night, where we were just trying to entertain. And that's what has happened with baseball now. It's gotten to the point now where it's so much entertainment. There's very little baseball like we know it from back in the day, but that was a fun night. That was just good for everyone because, lots of times you have rainouts and you have guys like Rick Dempsey and whatever slide, out there on the tarp, those kinds of things. So we just did that night, and it was a very memorable thing. A lot of people enjoyed that.
And then we talk about, Jerry Park is when you started.
Yes.
At Jerry Park, and it was just basically a minor league ballpark, but it was filled with fans who loved the game. And then 1976 came along, and it was an Olympic year.
Yes.
So there was hardly anybody at the ballpark. Nobody cared about baseball. It was a 52-win team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you played 94 games that year. But
yeah,
what do you remember about Montreal in that Olympic year? My memory is Wilt Chamberlain walking down the middle of Crescent Street.
Oh my God!
With 5 women on his arms, and then I read his book later, and I went, "Well, that's about average."
Guys really hated it when they took Montreal off the list of playing, because going there, Montreal was very, very. It was very accommodating when we were growing up, but yeah, Wilt, a huge guy, but I remember nothing but good things about Montreal. I just got through having a conversation with my neighbor about it. I said if it didn't have 8 feet of snow or 8 months of snow up there and ice and whatever, I'd probably consider moving there to live. Seriously, I'm serious. I loved it that much. The fans was great. Sure, we had our moments, but I love Montreal that much that I could live there now.
Well, you and I lived in the same building on de Maisonneuve, and Don Stanhouse. I remember I had to go up and knock on Don Stanhouse's door because he had traded to Baltimore, and so they couldn't get a hold of him, but they knew
that's how they told him. Really?
Yeah. So. I mean, we were all in that same area, all around the same age. I mean, you're born in 54. I was born in 54. Crow was 53. Hawk was 54.
Yeah.
Gary was 54. So it was a bunch of young kids. And so in 1977 to 80, it was all mid-20, early to mid-20. So it was, like you said, it was so much fun.
Yeah. Well, we were babies.
I'm going to talk about downtown, some places that I know that you frequented.
Yes, I did.
You go Big Sills.
Glad there's no cell phones with cameras back then.
Barbie Barn, Big Sills, Crescent Street, Mountain Street, Bishop, Saint Laurent, Stanley.
Yes.
So describe what a young single athlete in Montreal or a group experienced in that city in those years from 77 to 81.
No, well, just thank God there were no cell phones with cameras. Pictures or whatever, but it was a party time. Okay, guys enjoyed themselves. They went out and and they went to these places where you were known, just like Cheers. You want to go where somebody knows your name. And that's what we would do. And we would go downtown, and we would frequent the different places down there. It was very nice, and it was very safe. That's the one thing. I came from Los Angeles, okay, and I went up to Montreal, and the difference. I mean, LA when I grew up wasn't as bad as it was in the last 20, 30 years. But Montreal was just safe. It was just it was comfortable. The people were accommodating. They enjoyed us there, and the players enjoyed the city. You talk about Big Sills. Big Sill was she was very instrumental in my life. She this was this lady from Barbados that had this restaurant, right? And I remember one day I'd been on the front page of the newspaper, and I'm just being Ellis and growing up and being myself. And she said one day to me, I came into a restaurant at night, and and I was just, the news was just crazy about me. And she said, the higher the monkey climbs, the more he exposes his ass.
So that's Barbadian philosophy.
It hit me like a ton of bricks. But I could take that from her and Willie coming, because she knew me and she knew what I was going through. And I was just young. Rich, I was making couple $100,000 a year. Come on, man. I wasn't ready for that.
I know exactly what you're talking. I wasn't making that money, but I was around.
I wasn't ready for that at all.
Yeah. When you grew up in LA, went to Crenshaw, and I talked to you about this already, how much pride you had in the school. We'd be sitting at Dodger Stadium. This one time it was a battle of the high school bands.
Yeah.
And here comes Van Nuys and here comes Santa Monica through the center field gate, and they're around the warning track doing their thing, playing the greatest hits of Barry Manilow or whatever it was. And now here comes Crenshaw through the gate, and your face lit up. Yeah. And I'm thinking, this guy's proud of his school, and the batons are glinting in the sunlight as they're flying as high as the light towers, and the drums and the cymbals and the high leg kicking. Yeah, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is different. Were the drum majors as big on campus as the athletes?
No, and that's gotten better over time, but we had a tremendous school. The school was really just kind of setting records all over the place and doing some real cool things because we're a new school. The school was built in 1969. I graduated from there. We were the first full graduating class in 1972 in Crenshaw High. And I was the first pro athlete out of Crenshaw that made it successfully to the big leagues. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Yeah, you had Chris Brown follow you, and then Darryl Strawberry followed you. Yes. And so I guess in a way it showed that school that anything was possible. You know, if Ellis could lead the way, if Ellis could do it, then people are paying attention. Do you remember being scouted and how that was at high school?
Oh, God, yes. I remember being scouted at age 10 because I was younger than the guys that I was playing with. Back then, you could play with whatever team you want. You didn't play in any districts. You follow me? So if on the east side of town, a buddy of mine I played at South Park on the east side of town, so that's where we used to live. And so when you played back then, you had to be 9 years old to play. Now it's age 4. So these kids are playing T-ball at 4 now. But back then you had to be 9. So I was very active in the neighborhood, throwing rocks and bottles and playing sports and stuff, breaking windows and whatever. And so my mother was a beautician. And at her beauty shop, there was this lady that knew this man named Grover Strickland that coached a Little League team. And he said, why don't you get your son involved with Little League? I said, well, he's not old enough. And he said, don't worry about that. So they took me over there and they doctored up my birth certificate, the park did, just so that I could play because they wanted the kids to be off the streets. And it wasn't violent back then. You know, we're talking 51st and San Pedro and Avalon. You know, that was the Angels built a stadium not too far from there. Okay, right down the street. So, you know, it wasn't bad back then, but I played there and oh my God, where was I going with this, Rich?
You're going to being the big man on campus and moving forward with that. And the question to me, follow-up was going to be when you went back and you talked about how you weren't ready to be making a couple of $100,000 at age. And then when you went back to the neighborhood in the off season and talked to them about your life, were you like treated with reverence at that point? Like you're the man?
Was. And still am today with what I do now as a counselor and community activist. And, you know, what I tried to do a lot with the Expos was be a voice, but they wouldn't let me be that type. I admired a guy like Willie Stargell, you know, that had that kind of command with the organization, with the Pirates. I even enjoyed having Nate Colbert there because he taught me things. He taught me things about hitting. He taught me things that other guys couldn't teach me. Andre, Carter, Parrish, all of us, we were all around the same age. We were all learning the same stuff. But I needed to learn from those guys. So when they had guys like Earl Williams that came and played with Montreal for a minute. I sat with Earl because I wanted to know what it was like. That's why Montreal put me in the number 4 slot as a hitter, because I could hit the breaking ball, and I was smart enough to take the ball the other way instead of doing like what you said, striking out a lot. Okay. I didn't strike out a lot. I made contact. And that's part of my theory when I teach these kids nowadays, because everything is about numbers. Okay. And you want nothing, you don't want goose eggs in those numbers. So I said, if you strike out and you go back to the bench, you're done. You're toast. But if you hit a ground ball to the shortstop bobbles the ball, now you get on first base, you can do what? You can advance, you can steal base, you can score a run for your team, you can do other things. Put the ball in play. So I teach these young guys now to put the ball in play and, hit the ball, and not the home runs are going to come. The majority of the time when I hit home runs, I wasn't trying to.
Maybe MLB is coming full circle back to what you're talking about, and getting rid of the launch angle, the uppercut swing, and just put the ball in play. And that's what the Blue Jays did, and it got them to the World Series. I don't think they're man for man were as talented as maybe 3 or 4 teams in MLB. But as a team, they played better baseball, and they cheered for each other, and they all had a role. They all knew what they were supposed to be doing. Like, even the guys on the bench would come in. If they were in the lead, they would come in defensively. If they were behind, they would come in to hit. Like there was a role for everybody, and maybe MLB is coming back to that.
Well, they have to come back to it because, that's the way this game works. Okay. I'll tell you right now that the majority of the games today are lost in the outfield. The majority of them. I'd say a lot of them, put it that way, are lost in the outfield because there are no demands in MLB anymore. They just let these guys come and they just let them play, because everybody now is not playing for themselves. They're playing for a brand. Okay. And you have a lot of individualists out there, but yet the Blue Jays played cohesively. They played a very, very well played series, and playoffs. They got hot at the right time, hotter or whatever, but they played smart baseball, and that was what I enjoyed watching. And Junior is just amazing. Watching Vlad Jr. hit. There was a ball he hit down the line, a double. The ball was on his wrist.
Yeah.
When he hit it. I don't know how he pulled this ball. I don't know to this day, Rich, how he pulled that ball, but he did. But they played.
That's amazing when you compare Vlad Jr. to Vlad Sr., because Vlad Jr.'s knowledge of the strike zone is like really unmatched. I think he's going to take advantage of, there are other guys with that, but not the combination of talent and knowledge of the strike zone. And his dad was a free swinger. His dad would hit at balls that were in the dirt that bounced, and they get a base hit off it.
I've seen him hit anything that they throw up at him. He was amazing.
Yeah, you talk about the outfield, and to me, outfield play, we watch guys throw to the wrong base, miss cutoff men, throw balloons to a base, and the broadcasters are going, "What a great throw! What a great throw!" And like the balls that you and Dave Parker and Jesse Barfield and those guys threw were cuttable, but also carried and accurate. Never to the wrong base. Most of the time, you didn't even take advantage of the concrete outfield or the concrete surface at Olympic Stadium because your throws were in the air.
Yes. Yeah, I remember I got a video. There's one online that's on that YouTube thing you were talking about, where I'm throwing out Jim Dwyer going to second base, and Dave Cash is lining me up as the cutoff man, and he ducked to miss my ball hitting him in the head, and Chris Pryor tagged out Dwyer at second because there was a ball down the line. Dwyer tried to stretch it into a double. My job was to minimize those bases or to help the pitcher out once those mistakes was made, and that's the role of an outfielder, but that's not what is accepted anymore acceptance nowadays is this mediocrity. This, where these guys are playing the outfield and they just don't have the outfield tools. They just don't, and they're not even trying. I even see them when they throw just a measly fly ball to the outfield, and they throw the ball in. It's 1 out in the inning, and they throw the ball in on the wrong foot. And they're not practicing positioning themselves at all times, because that's what practice does. So that when it comes up in the game, you don't have to think about doing it; it just happens.
Here's one stat that you may not be totally aware of, but in 1978, second year at Olympic Stadium, and before I get into that, let me go back to Jerry Park and spring training and Gene Mauch. Did Gene Mauch scare the shit out of you?
I did not get along with Gene Mauch at all. And it wasn't me. It was him. And he got pissed at me for the time he took me out of the ball game. Well, I'm going to tell you, it was the first game in Montreal that I played in. We're playing the Pirates. Jim Rooker was pitching. I got my first major league hit. Single. Second time up, I think the ball hit 4 rows from the top of the bleachers in left center field. Okay, from the top of the bleachers. It was my first big league home run. My third at bat, Montreal just yelling and screaming, clapping for me coming, because it's my first time in Montreal. I'm this minor leaguer coming up. They hadn't seen me and and I hit my first home run, and we're losing 5-1. I come up for my third at bat, and he pinch hit for me. Oh God! I almost lost it. We're losing 5-1. My one is the one.
That seems like old school. I'm in charge.
Oh my God! So he pinch hits Larry Bittner for me because they brought in a right-hander. Okay. And so I come back to the dugout. I throw the freaking water cooler around the dugout. I'm hot, okay, because I'm ready to play. And the water cooler hit his leg.
Oh God!
I was toast from that point forward. So anyway,
I remember as a PR assistant, as a stats guy, going down. Because there were a lot of double headers because of rainouts at Jerry Park.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
But I'd go down to get the second game lineup, and I would need to go into Gene's office, and I was like your age, I was same age. So I'd go into Gene's office and say, "You got to line up for the second game," and if you lost the first game, he would raving, So I think one time he flipped the food table or whatever. He was different.
Yeah, he was very different. Yeah.
Of course, he never won anything. So
no, yeah. He just made a I don't know. Everybody said he struggled from different syndromes or whatever. I don't know. He just didn't get along with a lot of people.
But one thing that I remember about Gene is, because I've dealt with now 19 major league managers that I've either worked with or covered. 19 major league managers.
19, damn.
Gene Mauch is the guy that a month later, if you asked him what happened in the third inning on like June the 6th, he could go the whole game in his head. Maybe that was one of his syndromes you're talking about. Like, he could just recreate the entire game out of his head.
Yeah.
And
you call him Little General, right?
Yeah.
And
I compare that to every manager since. He was the first manager out of 19. And I laugh when a guy like John Gibbons tries it, or when, different guys tried to do the same thing and they couldn't remember that game. They couldn't remember the third inning of the game they just played,
Yeah, exactly. No, he was very rigid. I did not know the man very well at all. Didn't get a chance to. And he was different. I remember that episode that we had at Jerry Park.
He was. Yeah, I mean, you were just establishing yourself
Yes.
And he was let go, and Karl Kuehl, who you had, I guess, in the minor leagues, replaced him. But
amazing person, an amazing man, Karl Kuehl, I tell you. Yes.
Yeah, he got sort of torpedoed by Tim Foley, or something happened.
Well, Karl was too nice for the Expo organization. They needed somebody that kind of had a better presence for some reason. I don't know, but he was a wonderful developer of talent. And you saw what he did over in Oakland. You know, I mean? He left us and went over there and but that's what he was doing there with us. Larry Doby was another one that was doing some of the same things. And sitting and talking to him and riding on the bus with him and on a plane and talking to him about hitting and the mindset of hitting, because you just don't go out there and just start hitting home runs because you hit a home run. The stadiums are different now. I remember I hit a ball in the All-Star game in New York. At that time, the center field wall was 430. I hit the ball 420. Goddamn. Fred Lynn under the same thing. I hit it 420. And it's a fly out. It's an out. I'm 0 for 1. And so anyway, there's different ballparks. There's, you know, it's just different elements. You know, the bats are different now. Balls are different. You know, everything is different now. It's a different game. It's hard for us that had played years ago to not accept it. It's just hard for us because it's not the way our mind is not working that way. And I've watched the Blue Jays, and I've watched these teams that play smaller baseball and play smart baseball and play responsible baseball, where each player knows their role and they go out there and they do their job. Those teams win. But I don't know if you ever heard of a game called Over the Line.
Yeah.
I think that Major League Baseball has kind of gotten very close to over the line being the fence. But you know, because it's either home runs or pitching.
Yeah. It's not the way the game was originated, but it's evolved into a version of that.
Yeah.
You mentioned the All-Star game in '77.
Yes, sir.
Remind me about the pregame contest from right field. I think it was you and Parker and it was Reggie Smith. Somebody was out there with you guys.
Yes.
Throwing in the crowd was it?
Yes.
Who what?
Winfield, Parker, myself.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And
the crowd was just totally. Yeah.
It was not a contest. It was actually infield practice.
Right.
Even we took infield practice at the All-Star game.
But there was
what happened?
There was no one-upmanship.
What happened? We were all preparing ourselves for the game, because at that time, it wasn't that we got out there and said, "Oh, let's get all these arms out here and have this contest." No, we were taking infield just like everyone else. You know, every other game that we played. Today, they just don't do that anymore. So that's what happened. And, you know, guys got out there and they was just strutting their stuff. And we was letting people know, hey, we got a gun. So you feel like running.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether they had that whole thing, because like you said, it was just pregame. So the cameras weren't all on, and there weren't omnipresent cameras or camera phones on your whatever. But yeah, I've heard about it. I wasn't at that All-Star game, but I would love to have been there and witness it, because that's the sort of baseball that I love.
It was amazing. It was really amazing. I mean, we were bringing it. And, you know, every throw was a rope. Okay.
Yeah. No, I believe that. I've seen that. So I've seen all those guys do that. So, yeah.
Yeah, but it was a benefit. It was a benefit. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I kept us in the game defensively, you know, because I always, you know, I got in trouble many times because, you know, I felt that Jerry White was a better outfielder than Warren Cromartie. I'm sorry. I just felt that way for years. And you saw what they did every time they took me out of the game, they put Jerry in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jerry could play all three outfielders. He was my first roommate ever. I talked to Jerry once, twice a month. I talked to Rodney Scott almost every 2 or 3 days. We talk all the time. He just called while we were talking.
Oh,
Yeah, but Jerry White was probably one of the best outfielders we had outside of Andre and myself. Probably he was, and he didn't play. But he played well when I came out because I couldn't play 100%, and that's just the way I was. If I wasn't 100%, I wasn't able to do everything that Ellis does. So what good am I? So anyway, that's another interview.
You talk about Jerry White, you talk about Rodney, you just called.
Yeah.
There was so many black players, African Americans. You had Dawson, after you was Raines, Crow, Jerry White, Jerry Manuel, Rodney Scott, Dave Cash, Ray Burris, Ron LaFleur, Roland Office, Bob Pate, and others. What has happened, and how can we get back to attracting the best athletes to the game away from foot? It should be easy because the salaries in baseball have gone up. The careers are longer in baseball, but you get a guy like Kyler Murray choosing quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals over being a shortstop in Oakland. How do we get back to attracting the best athletes to baseball?
Well, it's we don't see us out there anymore. So you don't see us at high school baseball teams anymore. College ball teams. I mean, you might have one African-American ball player on the team. Back then, it was a movement after Jackie Robinson and after Larry Doby. And boy, I got some Larry Doby stories because he's an amazing, amazing man. I mean, but he got no recognition because Jackie got it all.
Yeah.
And he stored all that anger for years. And he taught me about anger, how to deal with it, how to work with it. And I got many stories with Doby. He's a wonderful guy, but he was this African-American guy that could have been a coach for a long time, and he wasn't. But he had his own things that he had to deal with. But I hear you, Rich, and it hurts me because pretty soon the Hall of Fame numbers are going to be lessened with African-American players, probably to the point where we won't have any more. And these Hall of Famers nowadays are the biggest voice that can make a difference in that arena, and they're just not doing it. And I got real issues with that because we're done. We're toast.
In 1991, when Dennis Martinez threw his perfect game at Dodger Stadium,
yes,
the last out of the game, the 27th out, was Chris Gwynn flying out to Marquise Grissom. And Chris Gwynn, I looked at the roster. Chris Gwynn was the only African American on the Dodgers, and they had broken the barrier with Jackie Robinson, and now they're back to 1 in 1991. It struck me as not right. But
I don't know what happened. All I know is there was this permission for Major League Baseball and African Americans to play during that era. And when that era was over, I don't know exactly when, but I saw that era started to shift in the 80s. And it just hadn't gone back the other way. We had an organization that was developed called Recognizing Baseball in Inner Cities, RBI.
Yeah.
And it was black. It was black players. That's how that organization started.
Bill White was one of the first guys to organize. I was in PR with the Expos, and I remember him getting up there and making a speech. He was National League president at the time, and he talked about this with great anticipation and great optimism that it would change things.
And we don't have that anymore. They're Latino ball players that are being targeted more so than us. So it's gone bye-bye, and that's hard to accept. But like I said, the biggest voices to make that change would be those Hall of Famers, but a lot of them are fearful of going that route because it would not be, maybe it wouldn't be accepted.
Here's one theory I got, Ellis, is Moneyball. Moneyball seemed to be, and that's what we talk about, baseball coming full circle and sort of emulating what the Blue Jays are doing to try and compete is do all the basics, the fundamentals. But yes. Moneyball was about finding patient, slow, undervalued, one sport galoots on the cheap. And you were looking for guys who would take walks, on base was the thing. You didn't need to run because you don't want to give away outs. Nobody wants to get caught stealing. And like that 1980 team, which I think may be the best talent that the Expos had. Ron LaFleur stole 97. Rodney stole 63. Hawk would steal 20 some.
Yes. I had 3 rabbits hidden in front of me.
Yeah. And like that had something to do with all the artificial turf fields in the National League at the time. But I think that Moneyball and Billy Bean sort of torpedoed even looking, because Latinos sign on the cheap, and that fits into the Moneyball thing. You can get a guy off the island for nothing, way less than you can out of the draft, right? Yeah. So that's my theory. Yeah.
But they're playing, Rich. We're not playing anymore. Black kids are not playing baseball any longer. They just don't feel comfortable on baseball fields anymore.
Yeah.
And because they don't see us in the big leagues, on the baseball field in the big league. Yeah. And they're fearful of going there. Now you look at the NBA, you look at the NFL, what is it? Well, it's a little bit, have those athletes.
When you were playing in high school, there were no travel teams in the summer, right? I mean,
we played.
The expense has gone way up in baseball. If you want to show yourself as a young player, you got to travel to all these.
You think you do? Okay, let me tell you. You got a Strasburg arm, they're gonna find you.
Yeah.
Okay. You hitting balls out of the ballpark. You hitting 20 home runs in high school. They're gonna find you. Okay. Then they got to develop you. Because what happens now, you come up with a different opposition than you came up with, back then. They weren't that good. Now every pitcher is a pitcher now. So in other words, guys got to learn how to hit. These guys now are being taught to hit in a different way. They talk about launch angle, so swinging like this. So why do you hit off of a batting tee in batting practice if you want them to swing up? Try swinging up, hitting off of a batting tee. Swing up on it. That means that the batting tee would have to be this high to work a launch angle swing. You feel me? It don't make sense. Contact is here, and by the time they finish up, they're all up here. That's why nobody's hitting home runs like that.
Okay, I want to go back. Yeah, I want to go back to the Expos when you were breaking in, and I've been around so long. I've been around the game, working somehow in it for 53 years now.
Yes, sir.
And when we talked about it before, but Gary Carter in the 3rd round, you in the 2nd round in 1972, reminds me so much of the relationship, the forced relationship between Bo Bichette and Vlad Guerrero Jr. with the Blue Jays, coming up, signing in the same year, coming up through the organization at the same time. Yes. And that reminded me of you and Gary, complete different personalities, but linked together with the same organization, and both immensely talented in both cases. What were some of the pleasures and the difficulties coming up with Gary at that time?
Difficulties with Gary was really selfish. Okay, Gary was about Gary. Okay, and that's okay. I wasn't that type of player. Okay, so he was that kind of player, and you could count on it. You know, the dude, you know, hustles. He played. He didn't know he was going to play in the big leagues for a while there until the situation went down. Where, you know, it was like he wasn't doing very well in the outfield. He was running into walls, block walls, and stuff like that because he's not an outfielder. And they put him behind the plate, and we had already lost Bobby Goodman, the #1 draft. And I'm gonna tell you, this guy was something phenomenal. I mean, he was unbelievably strong. I mean, but he just had buzzard's luck. I swear, he just ran into all kinds of problems. You know, it just happened. I remember he had a big Lincoln Marquis something car, a big old beautiful thing. It stretched, God, I don't know, 20, 30 some inches across. You know, this dude got hurt every year those first few years, and people were afraid to even ride in the car with him.
I remember one accident, Ellis, in Quebec City when he was playing for the Carnival, and he was fixing his catcher's glove with a shoemaker's tool, and he was pulling the lace through his glove, and it slipped, and he stabbed himself in the chest.
Oh my God!
Right in the middle of the chest.
Yes,
and it's sticking out of his chest,
yes.
and he missed a whole bunch of time there. And that's the kind of accident you're talking about. It's not like baseball accident.
No, it was rolling his car on the way to spring training, and you know, we were all walking to Daytona, you know, to the park and stuff. And he would come by in his big old flashy car and want to offer us a ride. We go, "Nah, man, we'll see you at the ball." We'll walk. We're not getting in the car with you because he's the only one that had a big old car and money and the whole works. But Gary wouldn't have been the catcher if Bobby Goodman had stayed there. Gary might have been something else, but because he was talented anyway. But they put me in the outfield, and I was focused on, because I was a pitcher. They signed me as a pitcher, first baseman. I never played first, and I never pitched because I had a pin in my leg my first 2 years of minor leagues and rookie ball, A ball, and to Quebec City. I had to have that removed after a couple of years, but it was Rich. Gary just was such a great talent and such a good guy, and he was just a kid in a lot of emotional ways, and that's what a lot of people didn't like.
Well, that's what they call the kid. But I remember, I have this theory about Gary and how in his post-playing career, his former teammates who resented him and all that hustle to first base on a walk and all that stuff, realized in his post-playing career that was Gary.
That was Gary.
You know, there was no phoniness about it. That was just Gary. Because post-playing career, when there was nothing on the line like that, he was the same guy. He didn't change.
Pete Rose the same way.
Yeah, I think his former teammates realized that and went, "Oh, okay, you know, that's Gary." He wasn't putting on anything, and you mentioned that he wasn't putting anything on. It was natural.
No, that was fake. Yeah, that was real. And you know, I didn't have any challenges. We had our challenge in rookie ball, and that was it. Okay, after that, because you know, Gary wanted to be #1 draft choice, and he wasn't, so he wasn't happy about that. And so we had our challenges there, but we got over that. But no, he was very instrumental in things, and I always see this throw by Dave Parker in the All-Star game. They threw out Brian Downey at home.
Yeah,
I taught Gary how to position himself for that throw. Okay, Gary had many years of me throwing that, you know, that ball from right field, and blocking the plate and kind of nonchalantly standing there like nothing's getting ready to happen. Then all of a sudden, bam.
Yeah.
Okay. And he was able to take Downing out because, Downing thought he had it made and Parker come up throwing. But no, Gary's a good guy.
That reminds me of that outfield assisting and positioning Gary.
Mm-hmm.
In 1978, and this is where I think the last half hour we lost because I was getting into this stat that you wouldn't believe or maybe didn't know. But in 1978, the three-man outfield of Crow in left, Hawk in center, and you in right combined for 66 outfield assists.
Wow.
And I mean, the surface had something to do with it for Crow because they would challenge Crow from left field and he would.
Crow had more chances than I.
Yeah, he would throw a slicing one hopper to the base or the plate or whatever. So he had 22 that year, and I think you had 22 and Hawk had the rest. Or it was more than that.
24 and 24. We tied that year.
Yeah, so 48 and then 18 made it 66.
Yeah, but Crow had more chances than I.
Yeah, people quit running on you by that time, right?
Yeah, I was done after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they didn't. And that was a good thing for pitchers. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't get mentioned in any of these, strong arm things online now anymore. They talk about the top 10 guys or whatever. I know I should be in the top 10 somewhere.
Yeah.
Because when a guy like Philippe Alou says there's a plateau where you can't throw a ball any harder and you can't be any more accurate, that plateau is Ellis Valentine. He saw Clemente. He saw Ferrillo.
Yeah.
He saw these other guys.
No. There is no list that I see that you're not in the top 5 all time.
Well, I've seen a few that I'm not in. And there's a major league. There's a video online too about all these guys now. What's this guy's? I can't think of his name now. Outfielder, center fielder. And he was supposed to have been so good. But anyway, I'm not on
I was talking about my personal list.
Okay. All right.
I was so spoiled watching those years and watching all those players that we've already talked about that now I see a ball in the air to center field and a runner tagging up at second and I go, oh, he's not going to go. And he goes. And the throw is up the line or down the line or late. And I go, no, that's not right. That should not happen. But third base coaches realize that throwing is a lost art and they challenge,
Well, baseball accepts what they're doing now. See, that's the challenge. That's the problem. They accept these outfielders. They don't call me and say, hey, look, Ellis, you had a pretty good arm. Why don't you come down to spring training and work with our minor league on just development? Because not only do you have a strong arm, you have to learn how to develop the rest of the body so everything is mechanically in place and sound. And they think that it's just you got a good arm. No, that's not your arm. And my arm was just the last act of what I had to do with the baseball. The rest of my body, it was a part of it. So anyway, that's what we do.
The Blue Jays brought in guest instructor to work with the outfielders, Tim Raines, and I'm going, where's Ellis? Where are those guys?
Yeah. Well,
but you talk about us being all the same age, growing up in Montreal, and my first winter meetings I ever went to. 1978, it was in Orlando, and I had never been. I was like 24 years old, as we all were. And so I'm in the, you talk about Willie Stargell and wanting to be a leader like that. I'm in the room in the suite, and we're talking. John McHale is there, Gene Kirby. There's a bunch of people in the organization, and they're talking about you. They're talking shit about you, about how you're turning into trouble and this and that. Yes. And I'm going like, hey, I put my hand up and I said, no, Ellis just likes to, he's having a good time and he's a great talent and he's not a problem. And they never invited me the next day to go back to the room. They never invited me again. That was a
that's too
learning point for me. Just zip it. Yeah.
Wow, that's too funny. Gene
But
Kirby. Wow, I haven't heard that name in so many years. Wow.
yeah, he was an original traveling secretary. And I was sitting on a bus, my first road trip. I was at Jerry Park, the bus parked outside the clubhouse waiting to go. And the seat that was open was Larry Doby. So I sit down next to Larry Doby. We're going to Chicago. And like Larry's grumbling, and I look, and he doesn't know me very well, other than I'm the kid who comes down to get lineups and stuff.
Yes.
And then he starts ripping into Gene Kirby. Oh, holy crap. Now, that's my first impression of Larry Doby.
Larry was a great guy, but boy, he had a streak in him. Oh my God. And he told me one time, he said, man, I'm sure glad you were here because I was getting ready to lose it. And I've seen him lose it before. It wasn't pretty, but it was great being around him. He was a good guy.
I mean, those mentors aren't around anymore for young African American players,
No, they're not. Well, these players now are, like I said, everybody's got a brand now.
Yeah.
So, they need to reach back if they're with their brand and help, because they're making an enormous amount of money. I mean, that kind of money. Yeah. We weren't even close.
I'm always struck by every huge mega contract. They announce proudly that so-and-so player is contributing $400,000 to a charity.
Oh, man, I've been having one of them.
That's a tax write-off.
Yeah, it's actually, it's 100% write-off. It is. I don't frequent baseball or know any of the guys to walk up to them and say, "That's work on some of this stuff that I'm doing on with this nonprofit. Can you help me out or whatever?" But that would be great, because I've been really doing a lot over the years, but I just don't have those kind of funds anymore. I used to donate money to Children's Hospital back in the day, and nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
That was a lot of money to give them back then.
Before we wrap up the conversation, which I've had a hell of a good time discussing with you, let's get to the part about the redemption song that I'm talking about. Okay. Because you left, you got traded just before the strike in 1981 to the Mets. Yes. And then you played a year and a half with the Mets, and then I think ended up with the Angels, and ended your career with the Rangers?
Yes, I did. Yes. Free agent in 83 with the Angels.
A 10-year career that should have been 15, 16, a normal length, and Hall of Fame talent that you admit was somewhat wasted later on. Mm-hmm. And we can't blame Montreal. We can't blame anything. No. But talk about your personal redemption and how you, in 1988, gave up that lifestyle, met your wife, Karen, in the 90s, now have 3 kids, now running services for youth. Talk about all that and how that made you feel.
Well, it's the hardest 18 inches to connect the one between your head and your heart. And all the way through, I was always considerate of others. That's why when I left the Expos dissipated. I mean, they got rid of a lot of those guys that was around back then, because guys couldn't really believe that they traded me. Jerry White said that to this day. He said, "Man," he said, we were all stunned, but I never had that support from the organization in the manner that I needed it and I wanted it. I had it early on, and a few things happened and things started to change. And when I saw what support that I had there started leaving around 1980, it was just tough. It was just difficult. So after my career was over, I started dealing with a lot of those demons. And after leaving the Rangers, when they offered me, because they called me after I hadn't played for 2 years with the Angels. The Angels was the first team to ever sign me to a more than 1 year contract, which is a 2-year contract. But what happened that year, that first year that I played with the Angels as a free agent in 1983, after I left the Mets, the first day of spring training, I ruptured my Achilles tendon. And I was out until like June. And my vision was coming back from after the beaning, Rich.
Roy Thomas.
It took 3 years for my vision to get back right because it shattered my cheek. And I was trying to tell people I couldn't see the curveball anymore. Now, it took a while for me to get that peripheral vision back. So the first 2 years after getting hit, I wasn't the same at all. And that's when I should have started switch hitting like, Eddie Murray did, because, see, I was a switch hitter before I got to the big leagues. In high school, I was a switch hitter all the way up until my 11th grade year in high school. And so I'm saying that to say this because, when I got hit, everything changed. And all of this
May 30th, 1980. May 30th, 1980, Roy Thomas. And you came back faster than people thought, but nobody knew that you were having the peripheral problem and that sort of thing. And nobody felt bad for you at that point.
No, and seeing I was the first guy to hit with a helmet with a made cheek.
Yeah, I remember.
Harvey Stone made that, and he and I we decided that we were going to use that football helmet grill, and he wanted to put the whole thing across.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I said, nah, this side didn't get hit. I'm only protecting this. Now these guys are wearing them. They've never even gotten hit before, and they come out with the helmet with the jaw thing on it and all that. I remember the worst information that I was ever given to by a Major League Baseball coach, a manager, or anybody in Major League Baseball. And that was from Joe Torre. He told me to take the helmet off.
That didn't seem like a sage advice for a guy who had gone through what you went through.
No. So why are you telling these guys nowadays to take the helmet off?
Mm-hmm.
So I took the helmet off and I had to deal with that fear because it's like a child. I'm going to explain it this way. It's like a child walk by an oven and the door's open and they touch it for the first time. And they know it's hot. After that, they step back and they go, oh. Now, next time they walk by that oven, it might be off and closed and the whole works, and they flinch. That's the way my brain was whenever a ball came towards me. That's what it remembered. And I had to fight through that to get what I got those next few years after getting hit. And then I lost my cushion, Montreal. So I had to reinvent myself all over again. And with the Angels, I was out that year, and then my vision started to come back that year. You look at my numbers, you started to see those numbers come back. I had almost 50 RBIs and 13 home runs. And I was starting to get, and I could have had a lot more home runs, but those teams weren't playing me against left-handers.
Yeah.
And I killed left-handers, okay? Vita Blue, Steve Carlton, Jerry, John Madlock, all these left-handers, Candelaria, all of them. But yet I wasn't playing against lefties. But that was my free agent year too. So you're talking about the collusion thing. I was 1 year from the collusion thing where I wasn't included in that because I know I was colluded because they platooned me with Joel Youngblood. Are you kidding me, Rich? Rich, are you kidding me? In New York, this is what I went through.
He's famous for playing for two teams in one day. That's all he's famous for.
Yes. But here I am playing. How do I platoon with another right-hander?
Yeah.
That doesn't even make sense. And I'm coming up as a free agent. What are we saying here? So when I said the Mets were one of the worst teams in baseball, I was going through hell in New York. they weren't giving me a shot at all. I mean, I come there, they wanted me to cover up for Dave Kingman, cover up for George Foster, all these guys. Who's covering up for me? And I'm the one that, well, whatever. Anyway.
So just talk about then finding the right woman, finding your kids, finding peace, and finding something to do with your life that has been productive and positive.
Well, what happened then was when I got out of baseball, I had no educational background, no work experience, no nothing. And I just said that if anybody's going to do this, I'm going to have to do this. So I gave all the properties and investments that I had made to my parents so I could retire them totally. My dad was still working just so my mom and my dad would have lifetime health care coverage. But that's the only reason why he was working. I retired my mom already. And so I went and got some help and I got better. I learned some things about Ellis because I was really a kid coming up to Montreal, but yet I was pretty damn good. And so I wasn't able to fulfill the more years of my career, but I knew at that time I had to do something else. So I got myself straightened out, and I realized what I needed to do, and I became a counselor. I did that for 30 years. After baseball, work with youth and families and helping people work on one of the things that I really enjoy, and that's character education. It's teaching them about morals and values. And I might have been a problem to myself and to the team, but I was never a problem to other people, personally. It never was, that kind of a, asshole or whatever, put it that way. There are some guys that we played with, they were really not nice. Okay. Yeah. But I became a counselor and did that for 30 years. Right now, I still have a lot of ambition to do something in that nature. I stopped doing it in 2014 full time. I still do a lot of appearances and little things here and there and some training here and there, and that's what I can get ready to do now. But that's been a lifesaver. Karen has been a blessing. Her and I have known each other since 1974. And we've been married now 33 years, 2 grandkids, and 4 homes later. We downsized 5 years ago. My son was the last one in the house, and so he's out now. So we downsized from 4,200 to 24, and I'm loving it because my knees are bad. So, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation, Ellis. And you've been back to Montreal, and I'm sure it didn't surprise you how much the fans in Montreal still love Ellis Valentine.
They do, and you're right.
And like that should warm your heart knowing that, and hopefully I'll see you back in Montreal sometime. Or we can do another conversation, but I'd love to give you a hug in person. And we came up at the same time. We faced a SWAT team down in a hotel lobby.
We made it through it.
I was trying to negotiate.
It was in Montreal at the comeback thing they were doing up there. I think it was
with Perry G.
Yes, right.
And so I'm facing a SWAT team with a Crown Royal in my hands, and I'm trying to talk your way out of an issue at a hotel lobby bar where you wanted to take a drink back to the room. So we have our shared memories, and that's one of them but that doesn't go away. No. But you were such a great ball player and such a great teammate and someone that to deal with as a PR guy I loved and I still love. And appreciate you being on the Griff conversation with Griff, and we'll do it again. And I hope to see you down the road, Ellis.
We're going to make that happen, Rich. Thank you, man, for having me on.
All right. Thanks. And thank you, everybody, for listening in. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this conversation with one of my favorites, Ellis Valentine. And we'll be back with a regular episode of Exit Philosophy. And I enjoyed it, Ellis. Take care, man.
My pleasure, buddy.
All right.